go. So, hey everyone. Officially do they start in a second, but in the meantime, hi everyone, happy Friday. And hi MJ again.
What's going on?
Yeah, you're astral traveling here. It looks like you're SpaceX. You're one of the first people that Elon's sending to Mars to just die.
That is the sad truth of it, is like how many of the first voyagers over there are just going to flat out die, either on the voyage or you know shortly after, from whatever reasons are unknown, radiation or otherwise. But yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is, like, obviously, people are talking about it like, wow, that's a big crazy thing. But anytime you hear about travel anytime before the 20th century, it was just, I cannot imagine the disrespect for their own lives that people had.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the old sailing ships, and like anytime you wanted to travel, big chunk of your people just died on the way.
It's
Crazy.
It's interesting because you have to consider what their risk versus reward was, right? The voyagers that came to the Americas originally, it's like they were so desperate to get out of the situation they were in that they were willing to sacrifice everything, and they knew that. I think most of them knew the risks with that voyage, and a lot of them died. So yeah, it's kind of crazy that so many people are willing to put themselves at that risk. But I think we'll see the same thing with space as we start to build colonies on Mars, Moon, elsewhere. But it'll be interesting to see how many people are just completely unafraid to risk everything like that.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, also, I think it's just the value of life has gotten through the roof in, I guess, developed countries, where before it just didn't matter. And like, there's a lot of cases where, like, I remember when I was younger, like significantly younger, I thought about maybe joining the military at some point, whatever. It just didn't seem like a thing. But now to me, that seems like absolute insanity. Some of it is because of the kinds of conflicts that are, involved in today that I don't think are, aligned with my morals. But even then, like, just the thought that you risk your life, even if you're probably going to be okay, but maybe you won't be. Right. It's an insane risk for someone like me that I would never ever take unless it's literally my friends and family's lives are at stake.
Exactly.
Like, someone's going to die and maybe it'll be me. And I think that I'm willing to risk that. But like, only it's like infinitesimally small. And like, some other people are like, I'm just going to like skateboard next to this wall for clout. And I'm just like, you could die. And it's not like, man, I could die. It's like, no, you could, like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
It's
a real risk. Yeah.
Despite being a crazy crypto guy, I'm very risk averse in some cases. So
I am as well, even to some extent with crypto. I'm not a huge crypto investor. I don't have much wealth at all in crypto investments. So I am very risk averse, partly because I am a family man. I have children and a wife that are dependent on me. So financially, I'm very risk averse.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And people should be. I mean, I'm partially part of the reason I'm risk averse is because I take so much risk in other parts of my life, like the fact that doing all the crypto stuff and just all these other weird things that are, then the rest is like careful. And like, if I'm doing, like, I'm one of the most risk averse people who does martial arts, probably, where I'm just like, all right, this hurts a little bit. I'm going to like not do anything. I'm just going to tap to this guy who's like, I could easily smash, but like, not worth it type thing.
What's kind of hilarious is, I'm also a martial artist, and like, I take severe risks often in jiu-jitsu. So I'll get caught in a submission and not tap quickly because I don't know. It's not, I wouldn't necessarily, it's sort of like a pride thing, but I just enjoy the challenge, I think, of escaping the submissions. So yeah, I've hurt myself several times pretty badly doing that.
Yeah. Well, there's the calculated risks too, right? If it's like, all right, well, popping an arm, whatever, here and there, as long as I know the health insurance is good. That's kind of it, but it is what it is. All right, people are probably tired of us prattling on about this, even though I'm not. We should just roll the official intro and get it going. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. So, hey everyone, officially, happy Friday. Welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown, episode 177, I believe. So that's 177 weeks, not in a row, that I've been doing this. I skipped a few. Like last week, was traveling out of town, so it's been like 3 years or so. I've been doing this pretty consistently. It's fun, and I'm joined by the one and only person in the entire world called MJ. How's it going, MJ?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Busy as always, but happy to do this. It's been a crazy news week, which is also a publication. Some people forget that, but it's been a crazy news week for crypto, pretty much. And I feel like, as far as crypto news is concerned, as someone who's deeply involved from like my very first full time paying in crypto job was for Cointelegraph, starting in late 2015. Been sort of paying attention a little bit to the news cycle. It really ebbs and flows, and it's been a lot of known big news, like crypto-wide news this year. And then it's been a lot of very heavy news weeks as well. It's just been kind of interesting. So yeah, have you kind of had that same perspective where, it's boring. Oh wait, everything happened.
Yeah, I feel like there's constant cycles like that. I don't think there are fixed cycles by any means, but yeah, I feel like there's periods where I get really bored with the crypto scene for a few weeks, and then things start happening and everything's on fire.
Yeah, for sure. This is kind of one of those things. We do have a bunch of stuff to chew through, and some very layers to that. So might as well just hit it off. I have to do the shell, because Coin ATM Radar was nice enough to approach me and decide to throw me a bag that they're probably never going to gain their return on investment for, but that's fine. But I like them. So this podcast is proudly sponsored by Coin ATM Radar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place who might try to shank you or choke you out or something, take your money. Not power to script, whatever. And unlike an exchange which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With Coin ATM Radar, you can find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy or sell cryptos for cash. And on their website, you can search by coin address if the ATM supports selling as well as buying. And you can search by geo area. And you can also compare current and actual fees at different ATMs. To find out more, to go to coinatmradar.com or coinatmradar.com. And the funny thing about the to a certain extent, the ATM business in crypto has been booming, but also it's sort of like a old school vibe, like back in the old days, it was like a big thing. And now that it's much less rarefied, it's kind of interesting. I also noticed that, have you used many crypto ATMs in your life?
I've never used one at all.
I'm sure you've seen them every once in a while.
Oh yeah, I've seen them. There's one in my local grocery store. I just haven't taken the time to try it out.
Yeah, the funny thing about it is the coins they support, it's a very like old school collection of them. And I don't know, like as far as I know, it's like all the UTXO coins. And then there's like Ethereum as well. And then I think I'm looking at their site right now. I think XRP as well. And then Dogecoin, just not really what I would call a 2024 list of coins.
Right.
Where, there's no freaking like Solana or Cardano or Sui or whatever else is. It seems like that stuff is like, there might never be maybe there is already, but there might never be an ATM that supports Solana just because Solana's like adoption is just in a different sector. And this is like the old school cash for crypto, vibe. Has there ever been any nano ATMs? Do you know?
Yeah, there have been. In fact, I believe the one at my grocery store, I don't know what brand it is, but I believe it does support nano. And there's been videos of people testing a couple different implementations of nano ATM support, but typically it's been pretty bad. I think you see like an hour for the deposit to hit, even though it's, nano is instantaneous. So it's like, I don't know what's going on. I think they queue up transfers in their back end, deposits in their back end, and are very slow to process it. But supposedly it works. I haven't used one though myself.
Yeah, it's funny because that's the truth. Like that's the case with a lot of. I haven't like prioritized it heavily because it's just the kind of legacy vibe of ATMs. But one of my favorite providers. I think they're called Bitomat now, but they were called Shitcoins Club for the longest time. I love
Yeah, I remember
those
that one.
guys.
Yeah.
And
They were the ones doing the shape, like the Bitcoin
mhm.
symbol shape, right? Yeah.
And I was just at HiveFest in Split, Croatia, a couple months ago, and they had one at the Mall of Split, and I was like, "Oh, great! Like, I'm gonna, sell some Dash for euros just in case." And there, I'm just like walking around the mall like an idiot for a while because they didn't do the instant confirmations, and just seeing like Croatian children like staring at me like, "What's this rando doing?" And not from around here. I had my suitcases still too with me because I hadn't reached the place I was staying. But I'm glad I did because the Croatia is a very a lot of cash only places. It's so it would have been for all my weird little crypto workarounds and stuff that I do. I'm glad I did that. So
Yeah. I mean, I still dream of a day where it's easy to spend, most of the big cryptos pretty much anywhere, but I think we are very far from that.
I can't tell if we're very far, like 5-10 years out or more, or if we're like 18 months out or something. Like, I can't tell because
I think we could see, some things that sparks it. Some major company, major platform that adopts it to some significant way that kicks it off. But at the rate we're going, I don't see it being commonplace for another 10 years or so, to be honest.
Yeah, it could be like, and that's a whole nother like giant tangent you could go on about that is, because right now places that explicitly take crypto are few. But then Stripe started doing stable coins recently, and Stripe is a massive amount of online merchants.
Yep.
And if you just got, I'm tired of waiting for Square, Jack Dorsey's nonsense or whatever, but like if some of these places like Clover start being like, all right, we're going to add a crypto option, all of a sudden it'll be everywhere, sort of.
Agreed.
There's also, do you know much about Flexa? Have you heard that term, that name before? Flexa is a company that does the Flexa network, and the AMP token, Ampera Foundation, is kind of a spin-off of that, which the Ampera Foundation is just dedicated to crypto as cash, and so they're very crypto agnostic and just promoting those kinds of things. So every good spending crypto should kind of hook up with them. They're great, very altruistic people. But so Flexa it's this network, this function that basically allows you to spend crypto at a bunch of different places. And it's right now, as far as I know, they just do it through the Spedden app. There's a specific Spedden app where you preload it with crypto, and then they scan the QR code on your phone or whatever, the Flex code as they call it, and then it pays. And they just added Sheets, which is, I don't know if you know that gas station or whatever convenience store. It's not in my area, but Sheets is like it's like a Quick Trip or something, one of those kinds of things. So you can already pay with a few cryptos there, which is
interesting.
Nice. So if the Flexa SDK is out as well, so wallets can integrate for the coins that they have listed, and basically it could be very soon that all of a sudden you just get, I wouldn't say mass adoption, but you get to be where you can pay you can pay a lot of spots. So
I think
could be like that. You just all of a sudden, oh no, it's everywhere.
Exactly. The quickest route to wide scale adoption is definitely through existing financial platforms adopting it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's PayPal, Venmo, whatever, but and by adopting, I don't mean like custodial adoption, because I don't think that really helps anything. I think people just see that as an investment still. But yeah, I think existing services or products even, that start adopting it wide scale is the fastest way we'll get there. But it's just been there's been so much resistance to that for the last 10 years.
Well, I'm going to switch to this Bitcoin price chart thing because I think my face froze up on one of these things. Maybe not on your end, but on my end it did. So I'll figure that out. But anyway, Crypto T, which is an interesting account, shared the basically 99,113.89 price chart for Bitcoin. Would you mind looking it up right now and just seeing where it's at?
Let's see where we're at. We are at 99384.
Yeah, so like very close then.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I told you all I thought it'd be interesting if we hit 100K while we were live streaming.
Yeah. Well, we very well might.
Yeah, it's headed that direction right now as well. Just up to 9945 now and going up.
Yeah. That is funny. Well, I did screw my camera up, so I'm just going to have to switch the view that everyone has. So thankfully we can continue going. But yeah. So that 100K. Do you remember that was the source of the laser eyes? Remember?
Yeah.
Laser eyes do 100K, and then it just became like a little too much of a thing, and then it became just a maxi robot thing. Not even all maxis, just the most robotic of them. And then it just started to fade out. And then everyone remembers when Pomp got rid of his laser eyes. Everyone's like, "Oh no, it's over." And now we're finally back, I guess. And then I don't really see the laser eyes coming back. Have you seen it?
I see a few still around. The most toxic, typically, which is typical. But yeah, I mean, I still see them around. Not the instant level they were, 2 years ago, before Pomp pulled it off, basically.
Yeah, the pomp top signal.
Yeah. I love him. He's actually one of my favorite Bitcoiners. Despite my my disapproval of Bitcoin in general and the hate that I put out on it, I do have several Bitcoiners that I do like quite a bit.
Yeah, Pomp's an interesting guy. He's much more of like a investment and business kind of a guy, I would say, than he is like a Bitcoin guy these days, or crypto at all. And I think that the hate he gets, I don't know if I'd say it's deserved. Like it's hate for legitimately what he does and stuff, and like everyone remembers the memes and stuff, and like the only beef I have with Pomp, like actual beef, not just whatever, is when he did the Bitcoin pizza thing and he wouldn't take crypto or any kind for the pizza. Is the like fiat pizza grifty scam thing like that annoyed me so much. That's understandable. Other than that, just he's Pomp is Pomp. Who cares?
I mean, that's typical Bitcoiner behavior, right? Like pretend like you're the biggest supporter, and then just be about fiat. That's all they're really about.
Yeah, he didn't even commit to the LARP though. That's the thing that annoyed me. He didn't even just have like here we go. We'll post a freaking thing that's broken all the time, and I don't know. It wasn't even that.
I know Jack with his with a block. They were selling hardware of some sort. For it, and only accepting.
I roasted him so hard over that.
Yeah, typical.
Which, as a very small side note, you ever wonder whatever happened to Jack? Like, he vanished a little bit from because he went off of X. He's mostly on Nostr, I'm sure.
He's on Nostr. I was going to say, have you spent much time there recently? I haven't.
I have not. No.
Yeah. I tried out Blue Sky, but yeah, I backed off from Nostr.
Ooh, what's Blue Sky like, by the way? I've only seen secondhand posts from it.
It feels like 2018, 2019 Twitter as far as the experience goes. It does have a pretty liberal leaning now because a lot of people who didn't like what X was becoming have gone over there. But I do like the experience. I like that it's tempting to be decentralized. I wouldn't say it's decentralized at all yet, but their plan is to fully decentralize all components of the platform. And if they get there, I think that'd be cool. It's a much better experience than Nostr, though.
Yeah. I remember I'm on Mastodon. I've kind of scaled back a lot of my alt social stuff just because it's like a waste of time. Yeah. But still Mastodon hanging around. And Mastodon's very funny because it's like 1% of like the nerdy people that I follow on X and elsewhere are like on there too. I'm like, oh yeah, I see you. And then there's like a couple super woke whatever people just like, wow, like where'd you come from? And then there's like, racial slurs popping up too. It's like the very tiniest ends of the bell curve on both those sides popping in, and it's kind of funny. It's a magical place.
I think the most interesting hurdle for a decentralized social platform is moderation and how you go about that. Like, should there be moderation? To what extent? How is it done? So with a Noster, I remember, I don't know if it's still this way, but early on, the moderation was very rudimentary, and basically anyone could report a post, which several of the clients at the time would just treat that as inappropriate content, no matter who reported it or why, or how only one person. So I tried Nostr out for a while, and I was immediately getting blacklisted by the Bitcoiners. So I was just like, screw this, is not worth the effort.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. But so Bitcoin pumped. It's still pumping. And then I shared this meme that I also shared like the other day about David Shattuck posted this funny meme that had the bleeding eyes money printer go burr people from Tether and MicroStrategy both pumping the big candle on that one. Yeah. And a little simplistic meme maybe, but it, with the comments. I mean, tethers are unredeemable, and MicroStrategy can always borrow more for more leverage. So this party can just continue forever, right? So, not an intellectual take, but what's your more intellectual take on that?
Yeah, it's. I mean, again, I'm not a huge market guy, so the dynamics of Tether and all that I'm not the best person to talk to on that. But it does seem that there's always been some shady shit going on with Tether, and I'd be very curious to see, if Tether wasn't such a big player in the industry, how different it might look. But I love the meme though, and the concept of MicroStrategy and Tether both working together, just pump out of nowhere,
pump to the sky. Yeah, I would say the meme is like 70% accurate. Like it's most sadly of what's going on. There's clearly just market cycles and Bitcoin's leading it and it's going up. The other third big actor people forget is the freaking U.S. government, right? Where, and other governments maybe, where like MicroStrategy is doing something crazy and unsustainable right now. Yeah. Tether's probably doing the same. Less confirmed. Like MicroStrategy is like bald-faced about it. So those rocket engines could expire, putter out. The thing is, like the U.S. government actually buying it and stuff, and then other companies and funds means there's like settling in room much higher still. I think. I don't know if it's like that means it's a price point that's higher than like 100K, probably, but I'm not sure. But it just definitely means that the party can keep going for a while before it's like, it's it's integrated in all the financial systems now, and then there's no more room for growth after that. And then it just settles down or maybe goes down. So there's that. The other thing is, well, think about the Tether caveat. Tether is the backing part of things is maybe a little sketch, probably a little sketch. The business aspect of Tether is a very highly profitable business and a very high utility for the world. And it's just the backing part that's a little sketchy, but so Tether could survive if they had to just stop printing, sell all their Bitcoin, and just do dollar for dollar in the bank account kind of thing. And they would still be surviving and profitable. And I just think that because they don't have to, they're doing cheat codes, but they're still doing great business as far as like the minting and redeeming kind of business. And then just the transaction fees I'm sure they get on all these chains is probably astronomical. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I think actually I don't know a ton about their actual business plan, their strategy for monetization, but it would be interesting to learn more about that. I should look into that a little more, but it seems like I'm guessing they get most of their revenue from partnerships with exchanges, things like that. Mm-hmm. Is that accurate? Do you know?
I'm not sure. Yeah. I do know that they have at some point they have a fee to redeem for dollars or something, or to mint. I don't remember which one, but whenever we're not talking about getting the token, we're talking about creating more tokens, right? Onboarding more. And so anytime people put extra stuff on chain or whatever, or redeem, I think that then you have that profit generated. As far as I'm aware, and a lot of this is hearsay I've heard from other people who pay closer attention to this, but as far as I know, USDC does not have the same thing. and there was a vampire attack by Tether basically, where they would, basically redeem USDC, put into Tether, and like basically take advantage of the fact that Tether cost money and USDC did not, to
sort of an arbitrage almost.
To sort of siphon away market cap from USDC into Tether. So I don't know. There's a bunch of interesting things going on there. All I know is like every external to US and Western Europe, anything I know, they all want Tether, usually on Tron. So yeah, I just know that like that's, it's banking the unbanked in a weird kind of sketchy way, but
yeah, it's almost like I see stablecoins as almost like an evolution of the current fiat system. It's just like the next stage in the fiat stack, and I see it sort of as a bridge to the cryptocurrency world that we want to get to. I hope obviously that it functions as that, but yeah, it seems like there's just too much power. The people running Tether and other stablecoins have too much power over the manipulation of the market, things like that. So I don't like it, but it just seemed inevitable with the way that the fiat tech stack was going. Yeah, it's just another layer, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then on that supplementary thing, I did write some article earlier in the week called "Avoiding the Bitcoin Death Spiral," and I think it's a good article. I mean, obviously, I read it.
I haven't finished yet. I started reading it earlier. It's good.
It draws, first off, it draws from that Pumpy meme, but also Justin Bond's crypto researcher has a very thorough post about a bank run type scenario on Bitcoin and this cascading problem that would basically just destroy the whole thing. And my take on that is sort of like, yes, but not as exaggerated. Also, there's ways around it. I think that it is kind of very telling the way, first off, you had wrapped Bitcoin on ETH, and then you have that kind of got Justin Sunned, and then now you have CBBTC, Coinbase's Bitcoin thingy. There's like the Threshold Bitcoin project, which is much more decentralized from my understanding. I'm going to interview the guy on that, and then I'll let you know a little bit more if it's, how legit it is. But basically, Lightning found its place, and that's where it is. It's not growing real. As far as maybe I'm going to be called an idiot in like 6 months when it finally takes off, but I think that Lightning's kind of found the limit of its usefulness, and that's where it's going to stay in the ecosystem. All the other like Fediments, Cashew, whatever the Bitcoin native L2s, I just think they're not going anywhere, in my opinion. So, but other networks operating to send Bitcoin wrapped tokens, that's something different, where that's probably going to be the future of sovereign Bitcoin. Mostly Bitcoin will just be, an institutional investment kind of a thing. And then if people want to use it, other than, super old school, like withdrawing Bitcoin to self-custody is going to be like putting gold bricks in your basement floorboards. Like, you can do it, people will do it, but it's still kind of weird and old school. Whereas mostly what people will be doing if they want to interact with Bitcoin in a sovereign way is just access these, I guess, L2s, but like other networks that are not Bitcoin first or whatever.
Tokenized Bitcoin. Yeah. I don't know the mechanism they use for like swapping between the two on those other networks, but as long as they're reliable, I agree. Like, you could argue that those wrapped Bitcoin implementations are a better Bitcoin than native Bitcoin. They're going to be way more functional. Like you said, it probably will be the way that most people will use Bitcoin if they're going to, because it's Bitcoin. If it keeps continuing to see more demand, it's not going to be functional at all for anyone that's not willing to pay, out the ass for fees.
Yeah. And that's like, obviously anyone who's known me and know my journey of living on Bitcoin and then having to not live on Bitcoin, live on other stuff instead, and a little bit of an adversarial, contrarian Roger Ver-esque take for a while, which, shout out to Hijacking Bitcoin up there, free Roger.
Good book.
So everyone knows, like, I haven't softened at all. I've just become a lot more pragmatic realistic about how it's going to shape out. Like, the problems are clear. Just that also there's nothing quite like the free market to innovate around problems. And so even though Bitcoin and the Bitcoin native ecosystem is probably kind of a dead end, first of all, there's too many people with too much money in Bitcoin that will find a way to not let it crash, at least not short term or midterm even. But then there's also, if there's a market for people to use Bitcoin in a sovereign way, someone's going to figure it out. So the whole like who's going to pay astronomical fees when it's custodial only? Well, there might be the pure market for that might just be in bridging, where if you want to start a new, if your chain whatever wants to start a new wrapped Bitcoin project or your bridged Bitcoin thing, then you're going to pay massive on-chain fees, right, to move it to this wrapping vault. So then you can then over time make money on all like the fees or the smart contract stuff on these tokenized things. And then if people winding down, redeeming from that vault, their literal Bitcoin, like on-chain Bitcoin from those vaults to then bridge on a different thing. If there's not enough coins to keep up with demand on the new hotness on the L2 thing, those transaction fees might sustain the Bitcoin network, maybe with enough security to, and maybe all these projects will have enough miners on hand that are just dormant. So if there's ever like an attack, they just like turn them on to make sure that their investment is secure. So it might just turn out to be like that, where the space moves on and just sort of like builds on, it's like you see some guys like passed out in the yard from like drinking all night, and then there's like plants starting to grow on them and stuff. It's just like, doesn't matter if you're not moving, the world's moving around you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing is like, what is going to be the incentive for even industrial investment in Bitcoin as it kind of plateaus, and it will plateau. There's only so much economic value that can be injected into Bitcoin, especially if you consider the realistic take on like other assets will still have a lot of value in the world, right? So as it kind of hits that ceiling of potential value, which really theoretically would happen within the next 15, 20 years, maybe a little bit longer, what's going to happen? Why would these industrial players continue investing in it and spending on investing into the support of the network through miners or investing in mining companies, things like that? If there's alternatives they can use for the same purpose as far as the monetary part of it goes, right? If it's just an investment, I don't see how they're going to continue wanting to invest if there's not enough injection from the rest of society. Which, as soon as you see a couple big players drop out, it's gonna go into that death spiral because it will be a massive divestment from a significant holder at some point. So I don't see how it can continue the trend it's on with mostly. And this all boils down to the cost of operation, right? Like Bitcoin has an astronomical cost of operation that has to be paid by someone, and so someone's got to pay that. And yeah, industrial players might do that for a while. A lot of Bitcoiners will claim that nation states are going to do that. But I don't see that happening if it becomes a massive cost for them, right?
Well, except for the nation state part, because the government loves to waste money, So I could just that's unfortunately the dream for Bitcoin, is to get in nation state adoption status solidified, because then we have to keep our reserves, and then you just pay whatever crappy price that would take.
But so here's my thinking on that is that if, let's say El Salvador, right? Let's say that they decide that Bukele decides in 15 years, because he's still going to be their dictator. He decides that there's no longer a chance for growth within Bitcoin, and that they're seeing too much of a security cost. They're having to pump way too much into supporting it. Why would he choose? Let's assume at this point that the consumer market is pretty much dead for Bitcoin. Why would he choose to continue investing and supporting Bitcoin to support his value rather than just going to something else that's taking its spot? Now, of course, this requires that something takes Bitcoin's spot in the market. I think it will eventually, but it seems like there's a point where the cost is not worth the benefit, right? For a very, very invested nation state, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be worth it to them long term. And as soon as they start falling out, many of them will.
Yeah, I think it's like, probably if I were to give like a equivalent prediction or whatever for Bitcoin's kind of done like a speed run gold life cycle
Yeah.
where it just quickly become gold. And now it's like to where it's, Fort Knox, it's like getting to that Fort Knox, strategic reserve spot already, but then it's going to turn into like, inflated, like Bitcoin backed stuff will be fractional reserve at some point, and then it'll end up just being like, Peter Schiff's boomer rock, kind of the technological equivalent of that. Again, I don't know what time frame it is. Things happen very quickly these days, so I have no idea. I don't even know if I'm going to die ever. I'd always banked on dying, but like, who knows if like,
it's supposed to be guaranteed, right?
Yeah. Who knows if like 5 years from now, like they abolish death and taxes. It's like, oh, wow, that happened fast. So I don't even know. I'm just taking things as they come. But that's the thing is like the life cycle could end up that way. The one thing that Bitcoin has over gold is the ability to do these kinds of trustless bridging or trust minimized bridging to representative notes, as well as the ability to ascertain supply at all times. And of course, there's that big cost behind that, but that's kind of what it has. And I think that it could become the new sort of like backing standard for a while until digital commodities, like let's just say, assume Ethereum was one of them, right? Like stuff like that became enough of a thing where it's not just like an unproven crypto network where it's like the gas token of all these things is actually pretty, commoditized. Then you could do a basket of those, a digital representation of a basket of those, and then that's like the superior store of value that then sort of obsoletes the digital rock thing. So I don't know. Who knows how it's going to go though? We could just obsolete money completely in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, live in the Star Trek world or universe, right? Where there's no money, socialist universe. Yeah, I don't know what the future looks like as far as what currencies, what will be the backing value of most of the world, but I don't think it can be something like Bitcoin, even if you consider wrapped tokens, things like that. It just doesn't seem like it's functional enough to do that to an extent. So I think, it could end up being something else. Who knows? Maybe Dash, maybe Nano, something else. But I just don't think that Bitcoin is a realistic possibility for that.
Yeah, probably not. We'll see. I think that also the now that the space has gone to this extent, I think that maxis are just not going to exist. I mean, they will exist as long as the rocket's going up, and then eventually they'll get distracted and start, still liking their Bitcoin, but then being into another cool thing. And then eventually, if Bitcoin slinks to nothing or slinks into obscurity, no one's really going to care at that point because they're already on to the next and the next and the next. And,
right.
Which is very optimistic, I wouldn't, it's realistic, but an optimistic take of like, if Bitcoin slides to nothing, it's probably going to be because people are using so much better stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because there's many, no matter what your objective is, right? Whether it's just digital money or whether it's NFTs or smart contracts of some other type, there's better solutions, no matter how you look at it, as far as usability and actual utility goes. So I don't see how Bitcoin hangs on. I mean, in my opinion, it's just effectively purely speculation at this point. The more people speculating on it, the more the value pumps. I just don't see how that sustains long term. I think value has to come long term from whatever is provided by the asset. There's obviously some exceptions to that, but for the most part, I think that's held true throughout history, and I don't think Bitcoin long term will be an exception to that.
Yeah, for sure. I've been wrong before on Bitcoin specifically, as far as like the time frame of how long it's got, but we'll see.
My thesis is it's got 4 to 5 more halvings, effectively at most.
So
that's my thesis.
4 times. So that's like 10, like 15, 20 years kind of.
Yeah. Around the 20-year mark is my guess. Mostly because that's the point at which to sustain the current level of security, as far as hash rate goes or hash output, it'll need to keep doubling in value. at the same rate that the halving occurs. And at that point, after about 4 to 6 more doublings of value, it's going to approach the global money supply and total economic value. And that's the point where that's the most like optimistic outlook for Bitcoin, where it literally consumes all of their value from all their monies in the world. And still, it's going to hit that ceiling within about 20 to 24 years, in my opinion, from the very simple math that I've done.
Yeah.
It's not complex. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting because also Bitcoin is the only thing that in crypto that has reached some kind of a wide adoption, even though it's not adoption as a tech, but as an investment.
Yes.
And very other crypto things are, I mean, do we call Polymarket mass adoption? Like it's a piece of it.
No, I wouldn't. Like, I'd say Dogecoin at this point.
Yeah, also as an investment.
Are the other two. And Ethereum, has utility. Theoretically, it's not the best solution in my opinion. It's a pretty terrible implementation of what they're trying to do, but it has utility. It has functionality that Bitcoin, Dogecoin do not. But those are the three that I would say have that same like wide scale adoption or investment, I should say, not adoption.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, speaking of basket of shitcoins and stuff, let's hit on our buddy Gary here. So Gary Gensler, the SEC chair, says on January 20th, 2025, I will be stepping down as SEC chair. And he does this big thread that no one read. Okay, no one read it.
I did not.
So before we get into takes on this, let's get yours.
Yeah, I think I have a less aggressive position on Gary Gensler in general than a lot of people in crypto space. I don't see him as like inherently evil, which I think a lot of people do. I think he was genuine in like wanting to do good. He just was terrible at it and maybe relatively incompetent. I think he and his organization were attempting to protect people. I do think that was their objective. I'm a hopeless romantic and optimist, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I think he's taken a completely wrong approach to it. And the biggest problem, in my opinion, with his administration with the SEC was just lack of clarity around anything. I think most of us can agree with that. They were making decisions on who to bring to court based on a set of rules that wasn't clear to almost anyone. We got a little bit of clarity as we started seeing which networks they were going after, which exchanges they were going after, but there was still a tremendous amount of non-clarity there, and I think that's, in my opinion, his biggest failure. So I don't hold him personally accountable for a lot of the criticism that you usually hear about him, but I do think he was a failure for the most part because of a lack of transparency and clarity.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. It's hard to separate out just the SEC in general versus the SEC's anti-crypto push that just appeared.
Yeah.
And then separate out Gary from that.
Right.
Gary, who, by the way, has a very nice, well-mannered, identical twin brother. Not everyone knows that. But he's, first of all, an intelligent person, clearly.
Yes.
And he's also very knowledgeable on crypto. And you've heard him in the past give talks and presentations, and he knows what he's talking about. Which, here's where I become more cynical. The thing is, I am much more cynical on that, but not necessarily like Gary's he's taken the fall for a lot of people, I think, where he has been the enforcer. He's been the bad cop. I don't make the rules, but he hasn't even said I don't make the rules though. He's like, he's been the guy who's had to do it. The rules have been really messed up though. One thing's for sure, and this is like my connection to that is a little closer because like I have personal like people close to me who've had their businesses and livelihoods ruined by the SEC. I know that like they're I guess FUD, what I would call against Dash has been not good. It's not been very effective, not been very beneficial at all. Obviously, all the damage done to the industry as a whole is just not been good. Where I get cynical and not just, okay, well, they're just doing a misguided but different way of enforcement is I've heard SEC lawyers in actual court hearings that I've attended myself specifically trying their very best to avoid any kind of clarity and
Giving clarity.
actually begging the judge, say, please do
Yeah.
not rule if this is a security or not. We do not want a ruling, because they want the sort of blank check. And in almost every one of these cases, there's almost no token, as far as I know, maybe even 0 tokens, that they alleged were securities. They always allege that they were sold as securities, which I could sell anything as a security in the right circumstances.
That's why most of their targets were actually exchanges, right?
Yes, the library blockchain project was not an exchange, but they went after them. The problem is, like for example, they said in their lawsuits against, I think, Coinbase and Kraken, they named a bunch of coins. They said that they sold as securities, and Dash was named in those 2 suits, not in the Binance suit, even though supported by Binance. So it's a little haphazard. And also here's where it gets, where cynicism goes more maximum than even just that, is I firmly believe, like, if I had to bet 5 million on Polymarket for an oracle to like figure this out, I would in a heartbeat. It's an easy bet to make, is that I believe they were not trying to win cases. I believe they were trying to cause maximum damage, where they had a lot of flimsy arguing in cases that then got struck down, but it doesn't matter because they drag them through the, all the clear examples of like lawfare, basically. And I think, I guess the where I will be, literal devil's advocate in this case, maybe not literal, but where I'll be devil's advocate in this case is, maybe you could say that in order to clean up the space, they thought they needed to put a lid on some of this stuff, and therefore it's like an ends justify the means. It's kind of like Trump is a threat to democracy or whatever, therefore we will come with all kinds of nonsense lawfare to crush him. But it's like, it's still the in my perspective, it's the flimsiest of defenses of this kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think generally, like I said, I don't know if Gensler himself was necessarily like strictly anti-crypto. Like you said, he was very knowledgeable on it. He clearly understood it very well.
Orders from somewhere.
He had orders and he was enforcing those. And I think it was very clear, like you were saying, that they're doing their best to take as long as they could to come up with a set of rules, right? To come up with a clear set of rules to guide the industry by, because they wanted to figure it out themselves. And like any government organization, they take ages to do that, right? So I think they were wanting to keep that door open, like you said, to allow themselves to have kind of bespoke control over any given situation until they figured it out. And I think that was kind of the reason for a lot of their, lack of clarity and inconsistencies. Because it wasn't just lack of clarity; we saw them flip flop on the same decisions over and over repeatedly. And like you said with Dash, even with the Binance not being mentioned in the Binance suit. So I think I don't necessarily think that Gensler himself was strictly anti-crypto. I think the SEC as an organization has operated as anti-crypto to a large extent. I think that also comes from elsewhere. I think it's coming from the other administrations. So we'll see with Trump, supposedly being very pro Bitcoin and crypto now. We'll see what happens with his administration and whoever he puts in head of the SEC. But it'll be interesting. Yeah.
I would definitely guess that things are going to get a lot brighter, but at the same time, now that it's not something that you got to pretend doesn't exist until you want to sue it. Now, the risk is that actual laws get written that are pro crypto but are uneven in the way they're written, or
the whole legalization thing, right? Like the term legalization versus decriminalization. It's like once you legalize something and put a bunch of regulation around it, that itself can have negative impact on an industry. So
for sure, and that's a big point that my friend Mark Hopkins is big into, and he was actually on the show 2 weeks ago, the one immediately prior to this one, because I took last week off, and he's a fountain of information. And also,
that was a great discussion.
That's I would definitely recommend listening to that, because on those kinds of takes. So that's kind of where we're at. But now the fun part is just like going over all the ways that people in the crypto community said have been petty about this. So first off, Elon Musk answers, is it true that the SEC only works 1 day a month in the office? And I
Gotta
think
love that.
I think that is true. It's so funny because he's not even addressing the retirement or anything. He's not even
Just
saying
completely
bye.
unrelated.
Yeah, he's just like trolling him with this thing.
Yeah.
Like, and then at the same time, and then you have our good friend Eric Voorhees saying, "But who will protect the investors?" Just as kind of like a dig of like, oh, you're supposed to protect the investors. Oh, but
And see, that's the thing. I think that's a funny comment, but
Yes.
I do think like there is a responsibility to some extent for the government to protect consumers from outright fraud, right? And unfortunately, we see a tremendous amount of fraud in this industry. So there does need to be something to help protect consumers to some extent from that.
Yeah.
My preference for that type of requirement is usually through education. Somehow better educate consumers. But yeah, it's clear that there is something needed there because this industry is just completely riddled with fraud. But yeah, the way that they were going about it is not the right approach.
The thing is, yeah, I'm of course in favor of everything non-government that can possibly be done.
Yeah.
And obviously, you're never going to convince me that we shouldn't be pushing for as little as zero government. That being said, if there is a role for government, it's protecting people from theft and violence, and to a lesser extent, but still, like fraud, and not like, well, you lied a little bit about this, but it's like literally you steal someone's money, and so
It's theft. It's a
yes,
different form of theft.
and so if in cases of abject fraud, I think that it's very. You can clearly get court cases going on, that kind of stuff. That's more of the consumer protection thing. The broader consumer protection, I don't think consumers need to be protected. It's just that people should be protected from theft. But consumers from making bad consumer choices should not be, in my opinion, protected by enforcement. I do think that consumer protection agencies of sorts, especially nonprofits in the private sector, could be very important, where you have like the Crypto Consumer Protection Foundation or whatever the acronym would be on that. And you have their sign of approval that this is a legit project. And then it's like, okay, there you go. And then if you want to buy some random shitcoin, it's just like, all right, you're in the Wild West. Like you should have known this is not on the approved list.
And that's kind of what I was getting at with like my preferred route of action for these types of situations is through education. And I think that, or signaling of some sort, right? And so what you're saying is some kind of signaling of legitimacy. So yeah, I like the concept, but then how do you set the rules, right? Like what is a legitimate project and what is not? What I think what kills me most about the Gensler era is seeing them go after a lot of, not directly, but going after cryptocurrencies that were somewhat legitimate, while I think I didn't see any action on most of the pump and dumps, like outright pump and dumps that I saw, over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So
Nothing
what
on
is that? Yeah, exactly. Like, what is that? Why do we have them going after these at least somewhat legitimate, systems and not or networks, and not going after the outright fraud?
Well, the reasoning that one of their victims, the library people, basically just said is they're going after the most compliant. Like anyone who came and tried to do the right thing and talked to them and gave them documented information, but that they saw a weakness that they could go after, they went after the like low-hanging fruit. Whereas if you were just 100% above board, but they didn't have an angle to attack you, then they maybe put you off to later. Or if you're sketchy as fuck, you just didn't have anything to make it easy, too much discovery, we'll go after them later. And so it's just like it's always like the lowest, it's always like the weakest that get taken first, which is sad about these kinds of things.
What frustrated me most about his administration with the SEC is
going after the weakness.
Going after the weakness in legitimate projects instead of going after the pure scum in the industry that is so blatant. We all see it everywhere. Anyone who's been here more than a couple of years has seen a fair share of fraud around the industry. So it's not a secret.
Yeah. Well, one of his victims is on the thing. Good old Jesse Powell from Kraken. he had some harsh words. He said, "You are a clown and a treasonous terrorist. You have done more harm to the world than anything you purport to have protected us from. Your staff will appreciate getting back to real work. To that end, I'm willing to work with you to help to accelerate this timeline. How can I help?" Like,
I love the offering of the olive branch at the end of that, right?
yeah. How can I help you get out of here faster? You treasonous terrorist and clown. It'll go.
Yeah.
So, like, I agree with his sentiment broadly. Especially, I mean, the first sentence is all sentiment, right? But everything else is, I would say, also just pretty accurate. I do think he's done more harm than anything that he was trying to protect us against. Like, they did go after, Hex and some other things, and that might have duped some investors into making poor decisions. But still, like the harm, the whole scale carnage by that has been a lot worse. And it is interesting he mentioned about real work here. That I think most crypto people are probably a lot like there? Yeah, or they're probably like me that said like, what work were they actually doing? Like, what does the SEC actually do? We only knew they existed when
they only work one day a month, so.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, and I posted a little thing about basically saying about how this guy's actions harmed a lot of stuff, including stuff close to me. So, yeah, I'm glad he's gone. It is interesting during the whole ETF stuff where he did like sign off on ETF approvals. I don't think he wanted to, but I think he just kind of had to. One thing that I really, and this is a whole political rabbit hole, I'm sure. So go to the political cash rundown podcast later or whatever. But like, I would like to have names named just for my curiosity, names named of who is directing who was directing Gensler, but also who was actually calling the shots for the still current U.S. presidential administration, because clearly it was not the current sitting president or the current sitting vice president.
Right.
It's someone else. And we all know kind of who it was, but like as in the group of people that it was, the entity. But I want the names named. Like who was calling the shots, You'll
never get that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a curiosity.
We don't even have the Epstein list yet.
Well, there you go. That's it. Anyone who is still alive and out of jail on this list, those people.
Exactly.
It was Diddy all along.
It was Diddy all along. Yeah. I don't know. It's Jesse Powell. I haven't followed him really. I know who he is and everything, but I've never followed him. Is he outspoken like this very often, or is this one of the most outspoken moments he's had?
This is one of the most outspoken moments he's
That's what
had. First off, he's not running Kraken anymore, as far as I know.
Oh, he's not. Okay.
I thought he stepped down, but
was he pressured out with the SEC pressure?
I don't know if he was. It could just be that he started a nice, successful business and he's just like on to other things, sort of thing.
Because that's what happened with CZ, right? Wasn't he essentially forced out by the SEC?
Yeah, he was forced out and thrown into prison. So that's a That's a different.
Right.
I don't think he was forced out by the SEC. I think he was forced out by criminal prosecution.
Okay.
In order to keep his company from being just destroyed completely.
Yeah.
So he's always been much more outspoken as far as like he's one of the more overtly libertarian people amongst these like exchange tycoons. So he's always been outspoken about that stuff. But as far as like hostile language, I have not heard him use that kind of stuff before. But again, I don't blame him because I'm sure all the compliance stuff that they've wasted their time on, and no one's ever had significant gripe about Kraken. Everyone has had gripe about Binance. I'm sure a lot of it legitimate. No offense to CZ. I think he's kind of a hero of the space for a lot of what he's done. Also did a lot of sketchy things. I mean, we all know that. Coinbase was kind of the squeaky clean one. There's a lot of rumors, though, of some sketchy things like paid token listings or intentionally taking the exchange down in high volume things so they could. There's a lot of unsubstantiated stuff like that, but it could be. But like no one's ever said anything like that about Kraken as far as I know. And so maybe that's why he's saltier than the rest, because he's like, look, I did nothing and you guys came after me. Nothing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I have always liked Kraken. I think they've like you said, for the scale that they're at, they have been one of the least controversial exchanges that are out there. So, yeah, props to Jesse Powell and his team at Kraken. I think they are one of the more reputable
Yeah.
out there.
And now they got their own L2. It's fun.
Yeah.
That's how
Everyone
you know.
does.
That's how you know. Well, Binance was like 5 years ahead to the game or something like that. Like they had Binance Smart Chain and stuff before this was a thing, and then Coinbase is how you know it was going to be a big thing, and then now Kraken's a little bit of a late adopter. But speaking of chains and stuff like that, the IOTA thing. So first of all, before I jump on that, how familiar are you or were you with IOTA? I mean, I guess because of the previous zero fee kind of DAG stuff, I'd assume a lot of nano people who weren't just in a nano bubble were pretty familiar. Is that an accurate? Is that fair to say that most people were?
Absolutely. So I have not been following it closely for the last couple of years. I followed it very closely. It's actually what brought me back into crypto. I had pretty much abandoned crypto during the whole block size debate, and just got frustrated and kind of threw my hands up with it all. And I don't remember how. I think maybe a friend had pointed out to me or something, but someone pointed out to me IOTA and started looking into it. And the entire they don't call it the block lattice, they call it the tangle. That concept really appealed to me, and the scalability that it would provide really appealed to me, because I had realized that, in my opinion, no proof of work cryptocurrency was ever going to be truly scalable. So seeing that, I kind of drew me back in, and I started following IOTA pretty closely. I was never really interested in the whole smart contract component of what they're trying to build. Just my priority is currently on digital money, and I think after we figure that out, we can start focusing on the other aspects of the industry. But I think it really appealed to me. I kind of kept my hopes up with IOTA for like 2 or 3 years, and eventually kind of gave up because it became clear that they were giving a lot of false promises, or promises that they just couldn't make on the timeline that they were hoping to. I think we saw repeated promises for what they called Odysee, removal of the primary coordinator centralized component of their system for I think since like 2018 when they had 2.0 or whatever announced. They've been basically saying it's about a year away since then. So I think generally speaking, I've liked IOTA. I've been a fan of it as a concept. I've always liked Hans Moog. One of their, I think he came in with a whole 2.0 refocus, and I've always liked him. He's a very technical person, understands kind of the technical details of cryptocurrencies very well as an engineer, and I've always respected his opinion on things. So it's interesting to see. I know you were going to bring this up as well, but his frustration on this was very interesting for me to see.
Yeah, I should also point out on IOTA is it was one of those big 2017 darlings where it really came to the forefront and pumped like nobody's business. And I do remember, I forget, I don't really know all the people involved at the top, but I do know there was a couple, and there was at least one who was very like, there was some like founder toxicity going on, which I don't know if
they basically ousted him.
Yeah.
I don't remember the names, but I think there were a couple people at the top that were ousted by the rest of the org. And I think that was kind of when they pivoted to focus on 2.0, which
Also, like as far as like it was also my 2017 top signal, because I was out at a pub and there were some local college kids that were talking about, I got a bag of IOTA, man. I'm just like, here we go. Yeah, this is it. This is December of 2017. It's like right there.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. I think what we saw, and because that was the same time Nano exploded as well. I think, or at the time, no, it was already Nano, I believe, at that point. But I think we saw that was the first time where we saw Bitcoin really feeling under pressure. I think we saw with a little bit of stress, the feeds kind of jumped significantly, and we saw delays. And I don't know if it's genuine, if the people were really looking for alternatives that were more functional or more usable, but it seemed like the ones that were promising more usability got a huge surge of interest. And we saw coins like IOTA and Nano and several others around that time frame spike to crazy levels. So I think there was this like massive surge of interest, and then most of the projects at the time, even Nano at the time, wasn't prepared for that kind of influx of demand. And I think we saw people back off quickly, and I think that damaged the industry, to be honest, for quite a while. It damaged Nano, I think. when it got too much attention before it was ready for it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, so it's been interesting. I think IOTA was one of the first ones I saw was like really, really piqued my interest in the technology since Bitcoin, basically. And I actually went and like tried to build my own kind of like protocol for that was built around the same concept to see if I could understand if I truly understand the Tangle concept. And that was like 3 months of my life that was wasted. but yeah, it was the first one that really grabbed my attention, and then I quickly found Nano and others that kind of followed similar philosophies as far as structure goes.
Yeah. So as far as I'm able to tell, in the early days, IOTA was built on a concept of no token inflation and no fees, and in exchange for basically to make that work in the short term, they had something called the coordinator, which, as far as I know, is up till today is still active, or maybe just last week they got rid of it, or whatever it is.
I have not seen.
Yeah, but the point is that was kind of the thing, is the coordinator was just a centralized node that just facilitated everything, which no one ever likes. But also, if you get too comfortable with that, you end up having one for
6 years,
7 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
With 7 years at least. So anyway, so they just released, and I did interview, I forget who from IOTA 2021 or so, maybe 2022, somewhere around there for my podcast. Right.
Not Hansberg, though.
Was that? No, it was one of their business guys or marketing guys. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'd be more than happy to interview the Nano team. I mean, the IOTA team right now, just to see the concept, because it's kind of like,
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I would absolutely be down for that. So anyway, let's just throw this thing up on the screen. Today we unveil IOTA rebased, biggest upgrade in its history, leapfrog, blah, blah, blah. They got parallelized move VM and EVM, full decentralization, 50K plus TPS, whatever, 10 to 15% staking APY, and all this kind of stuff. So basically, it seems like they're the interesting part about this, right, is it seems like they're doing a lot of very ambitious things, but very different from the way they did before, or very much less different from the rest of the space than what they were doing before. Yeah. So I put up this thing by Hans Moog. It's a great name, by the way. Anyway,
it is a good name.
He just said, basically, imagine working on something for such a long time and with that much passion, and a few weeks before you're done, you're informed that the plan has changed again, and that we actually no longer care about any of the things that we've told everybody for years. It's really hard to put into words how disappointed and betrayed I felt after hearing this decision, blah, blah, blah. However, I'm going to keep on, basically going along with this plan, and let's hope that the new vision works out. So it seems like it was the abandoning of those two principles of no fee, no inflation that he's talking about. Is that correct, or is that a way oversimplification?
I think that's simplification. They were essentially completely pulling out the entire system they built and been working on and replacing it with an open source alternative, which is the MoveVM network. So I believe that was built by, I can't remember the organization's name. Yeah, well, so I think it was originally built by Meta, essentially, and open source. It was part of whatever their crypto project was called back 4 or 5 years ago, and I believe it was open source and then adopted for SUI, who have improved it significantly since then. And so I think that's effectively what they're using under the hood now. And basically, their pitch is to completely swap out the entire engine beneath everything. So I think so remember, this guy's, I think, their lead engineer, very, very focused on the work going behind the network itself. And so he's probably extremely frustrated with basically all of his work for the last 4 or 5 years being effectively invalidated, in addition to abandoning their moral principles of no fee, no inflation, which, by the way, I have some qualms about their claims to no inflation, because it is an inflationary ecosystem, in my opinion. But I do think that it's a big betrayal of their original, vision of no fees. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's sad to see, because I think he really did, like, he was one of the few in the industry that I think understands um, the technology to a deeper level than most, and really was set on trying to make something happen that would have been monumental. Um, and so it's sad for me to see him basically get backstabbed like this, in my opinion. um, so it'll be interesting to see if he sticks around. I kind of doubt it at this point. I think there's not going to be a whole lot for him to have a purpose there anymore. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up dedicating his time moving forward. But I do not see him sticking around with IOTA. I don't see how that happens at this point.
Interesting. Yeah, it's so my let me just drop in this last post that I had there from Mario Newman. I don't know if it's a significant player in the space, but whatever. IOTA rebased. Although Hans Moog is disappointed, I will vote yes. Now is the bull run. Now there are several promising partnerships. Now is the time to deliver the necessary tech. As a community has been loyal for years, we deserve it. Let's fucking go. So that's a little bit less, of a forlorn yes. What I've observed from the distance, right, is first off, you have a radically new design from both, IOTA and Ryblox, therefore their later Nano, and some bumps along the road technologically during when that was made to work. I feel like Nano had a much more pure mission and simpler mission, and I don't know if it's because it was just easier or because it was just much more dedication, but it seems to be like navigating those waters of how do you deal with this radically different setup and make it continue to work. And whereas I feel like IOTA, just from starting out with a coordinator, which is in my opinion, like a non-starter, like
the pitfall.
Yeah, like that's a test net item. Or if you want to do a chaos snap, you don't ship that to the public, in my opinion, and just say this is great decentralized tech. We'll just deal with this later because they haven't, or they will, or they just have, or however long it's been, right? And maybe that's just kind of emblematic of like a little bit of hubris of like, oh, we'll make this grand vision work, but then just don't have the hard, I guess, the determination, or maybe it's just because it's not just send, receive, transaction. It's a lot more complicated than that. Maybe it was just too much of a task at that point.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think IOTA was launched officially originally during that whole ICO bubble back in 2017, I guess. And I think it's hard. I don't want to like make false claims, but it seems like it was just another one of those products that launched way before it should have, to capitalize on that, right? And to capitalize on that bubble we were seeing at the time. And so they're not alone in that. There were a ton of legitimate products that launched during that time earlier than they should have because they were trying to capitalize on the market at the time. And I think what they were trying to build with IOTA is far more complex by some perspective than what Nano is trying to do, right? Nano is very intent on being a monetary system and only a monetary system. IOTA's plan was always to be the Internet of Things and support kind of programmed capabilities between devices, essentially through their network, which is essentially a very complex thing to build. And I think if they had focused just on the monetary part of it, they might have pulled it off, right? But I think their focus being so big really made that much more difficult. And we saw the ramifications of that play out in real time. So, it's a shame, in my opinion. IOTA, as I knew it, as what I had originally loved, is effectively dead now. I think, like you said, they're not really any different from most of the other players in the industry at this point. And in addition, I think they seem to be focused on kind of the layer one decentralized application platform is what their vision is now. And I don't think that's the right way to go about it either. I think if you're going to try to be a system for decentralized apps, you got to do it in the way that Polkadot or Avalanche are doing, where you're more of a layer zero that is a foundation for other subnets to be created that are focused on it. Yeah, I wrote I don't know if you read it, I wrote a whole article on kind of scalability within cryptocurrency. And I think my biggest points of all that is focus on purpose, right? Reduce the scale of your focus so that you can be as efficient as possible for that purpose. And I think all these layer ones that we have now in IOTA just being another one of those, assuming this whole rebase thing happens.
Yeah, was
It's
it
just
the
another
core
player.
principles of crypto scalability? Is
Yeah,
that the one?
yeah,
Okay. I
yeah.
must let me check if I had to react to this. Oh, I did not. I must have missed this one. Okay. I'll throw that up
Check
on
that
the
one out.
I'll throw
The
that up on the screen and then I will read it afterwards.
Sure.
But yeah.
The thing I wanted to emphasize most in that article was purpose driven design and architecture, and I think it's really undervalued when engineers focus on one purpose for a system, and that's what Nano's done, and it's obviously a big reason why I'm a fan of Nano. But um, the less you try to do, the better you can do at what you're trying to do, and I think so. That's the actual post, but I have an article that's kind of an updated version of this.
Mm-hmm.
If you click on my profile, you can probably go find it. But yeah, anyway, so that I don't want to go too off the map here, but that's one of my biggest problems. Like if they were going to do this, if I was going to pivot to be to just start focusing, get the foundational stuff out of the way, use something open source. I think they need to go the route of like a Polkadot and kind of build a platform where you can have separate subnets for separate applications. Yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I'd agree. I'm not as technically in the weeds about the entire IoT ecosystem as I could be on that. I do know that the last one I checked in, I remember kind of the original design, and then I remember hearing about when they were considering pivoting to using this mana resource. Do you remember that era?
Yeah.
And that it's fees but not fees, you know?
So ironically, it's actually somewhat similar to Nano's kind of mechanism for quality of service. Where so I think the latest terminology for the approach Nano has taken is opportunity cost as the resource for prioritization. So effectively, the longer you hold value, the longer you don't spend or transact, the higher priority you'll be, right? So that's kind of the general concept. That's kind of what they built with Mana, because what they've built is a asset that slowly accrues for you over time when you're not using your account, and then you can spend that as your fee effectively. The only caveat there is that you can actually purchase Mana. There was a market for Mana, right? And that kind of reintroduces the whole pay for prioritization problem, in my opinion.
Did they have a built-in market for it, or is
I don't know exactly how it
party?
functions. I never actually used it, so yeah, I can't speak to that. But my understanding was that there was, in some way, some market for being able to purchase Mana from other users. So, and that's part of why I say they claim to be non-inflationary. That's one of the ways that they were inflationary, in my opinion, because you are paying stakers with Mana effectively. I think they actually had a one or two separate side chains that were that they were actually issuing tokens for as well to stakers. I don't know all the details, so I don't want to get too into things I don't understand. But to some extent, it was an inflationary ecosystem. But yeah, I think there was some kind of market for Mana in particular.
Yeah, it seemed like, and it is kind of interesting because there are sort of like limited resource type mechanisms in a lot of crypto that doesn't technically have fees. Like basically the whole Larimerverse, as it were, right? Steem or Hive today, and then EOS and stuff where you pledge resource credits to things. And like at Hive, they call it like voting Mana or posting Mana or whatever, and you get a certain amount of recharges over time. And
exactly,
it's got a lot of the same thing. It seems like there's only so many ways you can reinvent the wheel as far as that. And right now, where it like obviously I've been just observing from afar, and as always, skeptical on some things, but generally rooting for good outcomes. Where it didn't seem good was when there was that arbitrary increase in the supply of IOTA like a year ago, right? Something like that. That was just like, okay, you guys are done.
I think that was the first sign of things crumbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, I don't actually know how I feel about IOTA's success possibilities right now, but that might have actually gone up a little bit, even though the rest, it's clearly a complete capitulation. You have like all these you know, you have like it's just kind of like the hotshot crypto investor going back to get his job at McDonald's. It's like one of those kinds of things where it's like, oh, we have these bold visions, we're going to succeed at any cost, blah blah blah, and then in the end they're just like
abandoning it.
Like, okay, we'll do like, and it's two things at the same time. One thing I respect and one thing I don't respect. The thing I don't respect is you couldn't make your vision work, and therefore, like, you should have made it work, or like gone away, given up, right?
Yeah.
But that's not a business sense perspective. That's just like
right.
Oh, that would be nice if you were a hardcore guy, man, you would do this.
From the outside, it's easy to say that, right?
Now, the respect part comes from, it does take nuts, right, for lack of a better term, to just be like, okay, we are going to die, right? We are going to die.
Yeah.
We have to do something. We got to hold our nose and do what's right to protect this family, so to speak, right? And then they're just like, you know what, you guys are gonna be pissed off, but we need tokens to pay for shit. And then they do that, and they're, guess what? We're going to do a system that's proven to have worked because it works in other crypto systems, even though it doesn't. And we're going to survive. We're going to make it through. And there's a lot of respect for that kind of like, I love that kind of like, do whatever the hell it takes to survive and win kind of attitude. It just, I'm sure it's like it's more bitter. What's the opposite of bittersweet? Sweet bitter or whatever. It's more bitter than sweet, but it is.
Yeah.
It's a fun little mix of like that. Do you think so? But here's my big question on that. Do you think they have a future? Not does the tech work? Because of course it works because similar things work, but where do they fit in now? Like, do they have a niche still? What do you think?
What makes them unique? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess that'll still have to be seen. If they move forward with this, it'll be like, what angle do they take to try to differentiate themselves from the market? Like I said, I think, in my opinion, all these L1 networks are kind of the same at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them a little more efficient than others, some better at one thing than others, some focus on gambling, some focus on NFTs, So I don't know what they're going to do to differentiate themselves. I don't think they really made that clear in this announcement, but it will be interesting to see. And I think, like I said, I'd love to see them. I think the platform they're building on does have the capability to do like subnets. So I would be interested if they go that route of pushing that vision of kind of like becoming a competitor to Polkadot and Avalanche and others doing similar things. I'd love to see that personally, but I won't be surprised if that doesn't happen. I just would like to see it as a possibility. But I mean, I think that's a great question. Like, what's different about IOTA now than any of the other hundreds of similar networks?
Yeah, and the differentiation part really is important. Maybe devil's advocate here. Maybe it's not, because if you do, like, why do you need to differentiate the Wendy's burger from the McDonald's burger? If you build in a neighborhood where there aren't burgers and people buy them, or people just see the two options and flip a coin, go to yours, and they're more satisfied with yours, and then you win out despite competing for like the same slice with very little differentiation on that.
Yeah, I mean, even though they're clearly in a bigger competitive scene now with taking this approach, I think if they do things right, I mean, they're in a pretty good position, right? What's their market cap rank? They're still definitely top 100, I believe, right?
I don't know. Let me check, because I usually check. I got in the habit of checking CoinGecko after Binance bought Coin Market Cap, right? And they have a different market cap ranking. So let me see. 115 is what it says.
Okay.
In the last month, they've been trending up. Since the beginning of November, they've been trending upwards.
So, point being, they've got exposure, right? They have attention. There's a lot of people in the industry looking at them. Maybe they can make something of that and, outperform or, get more attention than a lot of their competitors for that reason. They have a lead, it'll be interesting to see, but I just don't see what functionally separates them from their competition at this point.
Yeah, that's very important. And it could be the thing with these, where I will be like everyone doing the same shit advocate here, is there is we're kind of in this weird spot where now every single blockchain, you're caught between two extremes where, the Goldilocks zone, where if you try to do everything, you'll do nothing well, and then just people forget and you suck. If you do one thing really well, but it's not enough thing really well, then you kind of get forgotten and left behind. You kind of struggle to keep up with the times. So what's the Goldilocks zone? And so, for example, a good, I'm not sure what a good example of too many things is, but probably every single EVM style chain that's not, the two big ones of Ethereum and Solana. Anything like that could be in that zone of like, oh yeah, you can do everything. And like, okay, well, who cares? But then on the other side, you have something like one of the best examples to look at for the other side is probably going to be Monero, for the very reason that it deceptively does two things rather than one thing. And the two things are it send and receive, like money, but then also privacy as a feature that's baked in. And I think the fact that it can do enough makes there be a big demand for it, especially with their very aggressive branding and marketing and pushes and stuff like that. They've been quite successful in a lot of that. There's also an element of I'm starting in which way Monero is going to fall. Is it going to be one of those gems that just lasts long term, or is it going to be obsoleted? Where I'm literally right on that fence. And because I'm observing things happen in real time, I'm like, I don't know which side of the fence I'm going to fall on, because generally I lean towards it's going to be there long term. It's solidified. It's got its place in history kind of thing. Then there's a few things like the difficulty of integrating it into certain dexes and cross-chain dexes because of some technical things. And then also all the centralized exchanges that it's gotten delisted from, it could easily still be on those if it just had a better, not a better view key setup, but if they just had a transparent option that was very well hidden, private by default, everything's there. But because of the ethos of it and everything.
You think that'd be enough to stave off the regulation?
I know in Europe at least it would be, because I'm actually engaging with a crypto lawyer for the EU right now, and I know I'm close with some of the teams that were threatened with delisting but ended up getting out of it, like Zcash and Furo, because it's literally that one requirement by the European law. You have to be able to prove origin of an address. No anonymous addresses for custodial crypto accounts. Right. And so you just have to have one address that says, this is me, I own it. Even if everything else is dark, just that one functionality. Right. There's like a bunch of those little things, little technical limitations that are piling up, which are causing to miss out on some things. And some of them are being engineered around, like one of the more talented security researchers in like the Thorchain and cross-chain ecosystem, Luke Parker, great dude, by the way, is building his own Sarai Dex to do basically that kind of stuff, but specifically to be able to support Monero. And if he pulls it off, and I would say it's more of a when, I just bet that it's going to happen, then that solves one of those problems. But then there's a bunch of other little ones. We'll see. We'll see, like, if it's, also we'll see if Monero does a giant technical overhaul. I mean, I know full chain membership proofs are coming, but like, I know if there's a technical overhaul that will increase its like programmability or something, not so that everyone's building their NFTs on Monero, like not that kind of stuff necessarily.
For cross compatibility.
Yeah, but just so you can do it, you can use it as collateral for things. You can participate in DeFi and everything like that. We'll see. We'll see is the big thing.
My personal opinion with Monero, I do love Monero. I especially love it for its principles, right? For the ethos of Monero. I think it's hugely important. I think we need more players in the space that are focused on the same things that they're focused on. But I think it's outdated technology at this point, and I think my general position on proof of work. But I think we have better solutions for privacy that will come along that already exist to a large extent. There are a few relatively unknown privacy coins that are great technologies that just need more exposure and more testing. But I think we'll see more players in the privacy space eventually, but it is a problem because like we've talked about the regulation around it and the pressure for it to be delisted from centralized exchanges. Even if you get listed on centralized exchanges, if you get listed on decentralized exchanges, you still have to have an on ramp somewhere, right? And that becomes a problem for a lot of these like privacy tokens or privacy coins. Is just the ability to onboard because of so much regulation and pressure on these exchanges to and even theoretically for merchants, it'd be a big ask for them to do that despite regulatory pressure, perhaps to not accept privacy coins. So we'll see. I hope that we see privacy become a bigger issue in the space moving forward. But right now, I think the focus should be more on just building the fundamentals for technology that can scale to the level we need it to, that truly enable digital payments without intermediaries. That's my current objective. And so you were talking earlier about like the niche of having one thing that you do really well, or having a couple of features, as compared to trying to do everything. And I think I try to separate the two in my mind from I guess from a market perspective. I don't see Nano in particular competing, or Dash, for example, competing with the Ethereums or even Bitcoins of the world, because they're doing different things, very different things. So I'm a technologist. I like to look at the specifications and the capabilities of technology over anything else. And I look at a field and say, what is the best technology for this particular problem? And yeah, that's kind of the way that I approach it. So I'm not really concerned with, like, we talked about IOTA and what they can do to get market, to get investment. I don't really care about that, to be honest. It's like, if they have a vision, if they find something they want to solve specifically and they focus on that and build the best solution, then that's all that matters, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the technologist standpoint is, I would say, primary. Like, I think you need to start there at least. And I've been too far into the business thing. Obviously, as like a full-time biz dev guy, or biz dev and marketing, that kind of, you see some other realities, like what it takes to get things moving and going. But still, like, my ability to sell things and pitch things is 98.6%, I would say, dependent on the technology. Like, it's it's what you got to sell. Like, there's only so much lipstick you can put on the proverbial pig or Bitcoin or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a great point to probably wrap this thing up. Other than, I'm going to re-put the core principles of stability thing on the screen if people want to go jump at that. But other than that, anything to shill?
No, that's I'd say go read that article. Maybe follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, or Blue Sky if you can find me there. I'm actually under the name Toehold Protocol on Blue Sky.
Crack.
Yeah. I've gotten my fair share of injuries from Toehold. So thank you, Joel. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the discussion.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. It's been a great chat. Always good to have I am always humbled by the amount of talent that comes onto this crappy little show, as far as, like, people with very educated perspectives and wealth of knowledge. And so thank you for sharing that. And, you guys are lucky who are watching. So just want to say that.
No, I appreciate you doing this. I think it's important that we get voices out, and we can't do that without people like you. So yeah, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for watching. It's been a good one. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. It's going to be, fun times ahead now that, who knows, the old teabag era that's starting now. I wonder if that's going to be, is it crypto's golden age? Stay tuned to find out. Whatever. See you guys around. Bye-bye.